welcome to episode 83 of New Money Talks.
That was perfect. There we go. I think this is the first pod I've done without Kyle. So if people watching here want Kyle, just DM him on Instagram. He has an eye problem right now. I'm sure he'd love to see your DM on Instagram. Kyle's actually been doing coaching lately, like e-commerce coaching.
Cool. Yeah.
So if you need that, feel free to bother him. He loves talking about it. So that's his world. But I'm happy here to have Zach. Zach, how you say your last name too?
Hamid.
Zach Hamid. We just figured out that you're half Greek too. I'm full Greek, so we connect on that really easily.
Exactly.
But I'm happy to be here with you. I was looking at your LinkedIn before we hopped on. It looks like you've done a lot in the last, say, 10-ish years in like the whole entrepreneurship, business building world in a sense. I don't want to butcher your story, like what you're doing. So if you want, feel free to explain who you are, what you do. If somebody met you at a bar and they were like, "What do you do?" Like, what would you tell them you do in a sense?
I say I do shit with computers and hope that it doesn't go deeper than that. The levels of detail. Let's start early. I'm from New York originally, Queens. Grew up, like you said, dad's Egyptian, mom's Greek. So I'm first generation.
What part of Queens are you from?
Astoria.
Really? So you're like Greek?
I'm Greek. Exactly.
Yeah, oh, wow.
Like that's like your passport. Your Greek passport should just be like, I'm from Astoria.
That's funny. I love it.
Yeah, no. So we've always been in like the New York area, pretty much. What happened? I grew up with computers. So my dad was like a self-employed like programmer. So he would have like his own clients and be building a lot of clients in Jersey, a lot of clients in the New York area, Brooklyn,
nice.
Mom and pop shops. So like this is the 80s and 90s. You had a warehouse, you had a dentist's office, and you needed some sort of like inventory management software, a lot of shipping software, a lot of this like old school like warehouse type software. He would build by hand for his clients.
For sure.
And so I just grew up watching that. It was pretty interesting to see firsthand. And that was just like my love for computers. And so like at the very early days, he'd be building all this like desktop software. And sometimes his clients right at the turn of like 2000, they would be like, oh, I want to have like a website with like a bunch of like a gallery of images or stuff, like maybe even a store. And he had never done like web software. So he was like, oh, do you want to like learn this with me? And like, we'll like figure it out. And so that was my first, like,
how old were you then?
10.
Oh, wow.
Probably.
Oh, so you had a computer early.
I was super young. Yeah. So I was like little, like I remember reading these like O'Reilly books and even they're like illustrated books. I saw like a tweet that had them recently, but like these old school illustrated books of like how to build a website and it was like, there wasn't a lot of like software out there at the time. So it was pretty easy to do, but I was super young and that was my first like allowance was like getting that money and
that's awesome.
Building that with him. So did that and like did that progressively more through like middle school, high school, but like always loved computers and was always online and was always like trying to learn stuff. And then in high school, my school didn't offer computer science. So I took a sort of self-studied, was making like software for like other classmates, like to make homework easier, was just always like trying to hack on stuff. And then went and studied computer science in college and then basically was off to the races. But college was really where it went from like, oh, because I knew I was always interested in it. I knew there was like some light, I knew what my dad had been doing and like what he had built and how to make money off of it. But it never really converted to like, oh, and you can build your own software company and like, oh, it can scale beyond just like the 5 people in your neighborhood or something. So college is where that really happened.
And so you went to college, you went to Harvard for your undergrad?
Yeah.
And you studied computer science there as well?
Yep.
I'm curious. So when you get to Harvard and like, obviously you grew up learning how to, I'm assuming you knew how to code kind of going into college and everything too. When you go to a place like Harvard where everyone is pretty put together, where'd you rank across like from top to bottom from like a computer science? Like were you one of the smartest in the room? Were you not one of the smartest? Were you like, was it a shock to you in a sense?
Yeah. So Harvard is interesting because there's 2 parts to that. The first is there's a real history to the Harvard computer science department. movement. So you have Bill Gates is like the most famous, and so like
Yep.
his mother's name is on the building. He like dedicated the whole computer
Really?
science
Oh,
building
wow.
to Harvard. So that is like very much like at the forefront. And there were even professors, maybe not that had taught Bill Gates, but that had taught Mark Zuckerberg. And so like you're going into these classes, and literally like the sophomore year like required intro class, the professor goes up and he's like, "This is the class that this is the last computer science class that Mark Zuckerberg took before he dropped out. Like this is like
Jeez.
and like Zuck like was much smarter than everybody else in the class, and that's like basically the whole backstory. But that was very much like on campus the feeling. The reason I wanted to go there for CS in particular was because it was more applied. So you have places like where MIT is like very theoretical. It's very like math based. Other places, if you go to like Carnegie Mellon, that's going to be, you can do theoretical or you can do like very applied. Harvard tries to do, not only do you have to take a bunch of other humanities classes, so you end up like learning and applying your academics to like other subjects, but it also attracts a very different group of people. So you have some people that were math Olympiad, they've been coding, for forever. Then you have other people who, like me, who have just like are interested in it and it's like a hobby, but you've never actually like done it. And then you have a lot of people who pick it up while you're, especially when I was there, it was always the intro to economics and the intro to computer science were like battling for the top class.
Really?
And a lot of people, it was their first class, they took it, they were like, I hate this, and they never took it again. And then other people were like, they took it and they were like, this is actually the thing I want to do for the rest of my life.
So it's either you go into like you're like an engineer or you become a banker. It's pretty much like
exactly, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, like that was like the and both are really important foundational skills, I think.
For sure.
Like, I think kids should take both at least once just to understand it. But yeah, so that was my classmates were super smart. And I learned a ton from just like, it definitely like leveled me up in terms of my just programming ability to like think through problems. Like they're like brilliant people.
Definitely. And you say like how amazing Harvard was, but you ended up dropping out of Harvard, I'm assuming, right?
I finished early. So
you finished early. Okay.
Yeah. So
that sounds like a Greek parent type of thing to say too. They made you finish early. I did the same thing. I finished in 3 years to like finish early.
See, See, so you have the best of both worlds. But yeah, exactly. That was my. I just took a bunch of classes.
So how'd you come across the Theo Fellowship too? I'm curious, and like, what was like the project that you had going into that, and like what that whole process looked like too? Yeah.
Yeah. So I met this guy Sujay Tile, who was 1 or 2 years above me at Harvard. And he was definitely like one of the like smarter people I had met on campus. He was doing a bunch of really interesting things. And I learned about it through him. He was like, oh, I'm a Thiel Fellow. I think he was either the first or second year that the Thiel Fellowship was around. And I was like, I knew nothing about it, but you had this sort of, like I said, like there were, my freshman year, The Social Network came out, the movie. And you watched all of that happen on campus. Like we watched it in the Harvard, movie theater. You're watching a movie about Harvard at Harvard. It was like very, but that was the first time I think a lot of people really became interested in just like starting their own thing and like alternative sort of paths. And so you could definitely feel like the vibe shift a little bit on campus because of that. And so, Sujay and a bunch of other, I don't remember how many other people specifically from Harvard had been in it, but like a handful, and they were definitely like people that were thinking differently, thinking for themselves, very independent, and wanted to build stuff. And so I looked into it more, and you had this sort of like the PayPal mafia, and Peter Thiel, and all of these just like really smart people who had built really successful companies and then like gone up and done like really interesting other things. And so I was like, let me learn more about it. I met a bunch of people through it, and a friend of mine, Delian, who
that's funny you brought up Delian. I was in the same fraternity with his brother.
No way, Pavel.
Yeah, Pavel. Me and Pavel were in the same.
So funny.
He's a year younger than me. Yeah, that's funny.
So funny. Yeah, so Delian I knew also through like the Boston like startup scene.
Interesting.
And we applied together, got in together. Delian is a perfect example of like that type of person, right? So like thinks very independently, thinks differently, likes building stuff. Like So we, I think both of us hadn't really been to SF much. We go out to SF and to work on. He was working on actually a healthcare startup at the time that I remember. He applied to YC with it. I was working on an EdTech startup at the time. Basically, my mom was a teacher.
Okay.
And I saw how much like grunt work.
This is funny because my mom's a teacher. What did your mom teach? Yeah.
In East Harlem, or she retired now, but East Harlem. So
my mom teaches in Washington
like
Heights.
This
is kind of funny. What grade does she teach?
Like East Side, West Side. What she taught first grade.
Well, yeah, mom's I think third grade she teaches. That's so funny.
That's so funny.
That's nuts. Anyway, sorry to cut you off.
People listening to this are gonna be like, I'm not Greek and I don't know
what the fuck's going on? Yeah.
This was not planned.
No.
Yeah. So
we've never met before.
No, exactly. See, this is why I love the internet. So I don't know about you growing up, but like I went to my mom's school and like I like
For sure.
Grew up there. Like all the teachers knew me, whatever. And so I would just see how much she would bring back like stacks of paperwork, and she'd be doing like you do like grading and stuff, but then she would always ask me, can you make me a worksheet that like does this thing, or can you like I need to make a permission slip that da da da. And so my idea was always like, there's no reason why these teachers would sit down for hours and, like, make paper like on the computer, Microsoft Word, like that, and like they couldn't format the Word doc, and it was nuts. And I was like, first of all, there should be some like central database of all this stuff. Like a teacher in like California should be like, we should all have one big centralized database of paperwork that we're all sharing.
Sure, yeah.
Like if you need a worksheet for shapes, just like steal somebody else's. But also, if you need to make modifications to it, it shouldn't be you doing that. Like you should, like there should be go pay or have, that was also around the time that Donors Choose, I think it was, that like people were donating to teachers directly. So my mom would put up like, I need a new carpet for my class, and a bunch of like donors would, give $5 each, and then she would have a new carpet for her class. So I was like, there's something here around making new resources for teachers, educational resources that doesn't require the teacher to sit down and waste a bunch of time. And so that was my idea. And I think there were a bunch of aspects of that worked or didn't work. Now I think with AI, it's like totally a possibility. And I think a lot of other sites have popped up to do stuff like that. But that was the sort of idea that I applied with.
Got you. So how long did you run with that idea? Because like I'm assuming you were 21 when you were working on that. And had you moved to SF, or were you still in Boston? I moved to SF
for summer. And so I did that. I did a bunch of things that summer. So I was working on that. I was interning at a company called Jawbone, which was making like hardware, like speakers and stuff like that. That was an internship I had before. That was learned a ton there. And then I met the co-founders of my next startup that summer in SF, and we started working on like a dev tools company.
Got you.
But the teacher thing was hard to give up, only because like it's so personal. I just think the monetization became really hard. Like teachers don't have a willingness to pay. I mean, they just don't have a lot of money to begin with. And there is still a lot of the paperwork and stuff still got locked up and like in like schools and stuff. It just wasn't the right timing. But
the story gets funny. So like my first company I started was in education too, EdTech.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we were. I still own it, and someone runs it. But we were pretty much teaching 2nd grade to 8th grade how to code.
Cool.
So we had classes at like every single public library in Bergen County, New Jersey. It's like I think it's around, there's 72 libraries here, and we do that like Catholic schools, private schools as well, like after school programs. And I fell into the same issue where like you realize you love doing it. It's like a good thing to do. Like if your mom's a teacher, especially, like, oh shit, this is amazing. But then you start looking at the math on like the business model and the revenue model. You're just like, well, this is never going to be a massive company or like even big enough to like make a dent in anything, right? So like you kind of fall into that scenario too.
Yeah, and you're like, do the schools pay? Do
Who
donors pay?
pays?
Do
Yeah,
teachers pay? Like, it's just like, yeah. And at the end of the day, you're not. I think it's a great sort of like lifestyle business. Like, to start it for yourself, do it because you care. But
100%.
it would also, I didn't know, other than my like mom and her like teacher friends. I didn't know. I wasn't like in education. I didn't have
Definitely.
that stuff. So that was another like
Yeah.
conflicting factor.
So did you live in the Bay Area after that, or did you come back to? Hey, what's up, New Money Talks fam? Want to give a quick shout out to our amazing sponsor, OmniSend. Email and SMS marketing is the lifeblood and backbone of every e-commerce brand. It helps you generate more revenue from your current customers, build an amazingly loyal fan base, and even helps you generate user-generated content from your customers. If you're looking for an awesome software to use for email and SMS, OmniSend is your place to be. OmniSend helps e-com brands around the world grow and retain their audience through easy-to-use SMS and email marketing software. They have amazing templates, amazing plugins, and awesome software integrations. And they have award-winning customer support with 24/7 support, even on the free plan. So if you can't afford a plan, the free plan has awesome customer support too. We've been using this software all the way since 2018. Kyle and I have had stores that we use OmniSend, and they've been amazing. So I can only imagine how amazing they'd be 7 years later. If you need an awesome email and SMS tool, OmniSend's your place to be. Click the link in the description to check them out. They're a game changer. They're the place to be. Back to the podcast.
I moved back. I don't love the Bay Area, but I like that other people like it. I just don't necessarily need to live there, but it's not my favorite place.
Same.
I also like, I didn't have a car at that time. I was like biking everywhere, and like it's all uphill, and it's just like it was not hospitable for, a broke sort of like college student.
Makes sense.
Coming out of college, but
Yeah.
I learned a ton. And that was like enough for me. And I met two other guys in SF that also wanted to be back in New York, and so we all were just like,
you all came back. Did you guys start Clay together?
No, so I met. So we started a DevTools company, but in adjacent offices, I met my co-founder, so we were all in like the same like co-working space. Basically.
Got it. So explain to me how you go from the EdTech to like the Theo Fellowship. I'm sure like a few years in there, that's like something's going on, and then you start Clay in a sense, because you've been on Clay for almost like 5-6 years now, right?
Yeah. So I started a DevTools company. That didn't work out for a bunch of different reasons, but learned a ton through that.
Explain to me what like a DevTools company is.
Yeah. So it's sort of similar to your it's an aspect of wanting to learn to code, but we had all been engineers at different companies, and this idea that you want to just like get software running. You just like, you find a code on GitHub, or you have something that you write your own little piece of code, and you want to just get it running. The amount of stuff you have to install on your local computer to like actually get that running is like tons. And a lot of people will mess it up, and then you have to like wipe everything. It like takes forever. And so we were like, it would be great. You find code on GitHub, you press like go, and it like starts working. Cool. Like that was the vision. Around the time we were thinking about that, this software called Docker came out, and the idea behind Docker is like, it's like a virtual machine. Like you don't need, all of your code is in like a little box, and you don't have to ever mess with.
It looks like a little whale, right? It's like a little whale.
Yeah,
I've seen that before.
And the whole idea is like a shipping container. So like everything's in a shipping container, and you can stack the shipping containers, but you never have to like install, like everything is compartmentalized in that shipping container.
That's a YC company too, right?
I think so.
I think it might be. Or something in the Bay Area. I had seen them before, yeah.
Yeah. And so that was the origin. That was like the enabling technology. Like without this, like none of this works. But Docker allows you to write all of your, almost like the things you need to run the software in a file, and you just like leave that file everywhere else. And so it allows you to do something like Play. And so we were trying to build out like the Mac app or like desktop app that allows you to run this. You don't have to worry about it. You install our thing, and then like all of a sudden now any software you see, you can just like get it to work. So that was called Bowery. And like I said, so like met my co-founders, love my co-founders, but like learned a ton through that experience. Also building for developers is like a very different market, which I can talk about separately for hours. But so learned a ton through that. Did that for 2-ish years. I don't even remember now, but basically ended up like moving on for a few different reasons. and then didn't know what I wanted to do next. Met my current co-founder through that whole experience, which was sort of a blessing. And then was like, I don't know what I want to do. Met part of the team at Goldman Sachs, which was like, I did not think I was
I saw you worked at Goldman for like a year or something, right?
For like 4 to 5 years.
Yeah. Oh, really? Maybe I like misread that.
No. So that was like,
oh shit, yeah, 3.5. Yeah, what the hell are you doing at Goldman?
Yeah, so Goldman was totally like opportunistic. Met a guy there. He was like, we're building like a startup internally, and I was like, every company says that, and he was like, no, we are. Here's the team. Come meet the team, and just like see if you want to meet the team. And I like met the team, and I was like, these people are really smart, and they like do sort of know what they're talking about, but like they've never built software. Like they didn't have any designers, product people, none of that. It was 2 people on the trading floor at Goldman, just building basically what ended up becoming an alternative to the Bloomberg terminal that they wanted to sell. So that was the goal. Was they had spun out, this is in 14, 15. They had spun out a product called Symphony, and Symphony was basically Bloomberg chat. And they had built a tool internally that all the banks wanted to use. And so they were like, okay, let's make this its own company. And that ended up being like a multi-million dollar company. And so they were like, okay, we have Bloomberg chat now as a company. Bloomberg as a terminal and as a company relies on chat and then on a bunch of like analytics and research. And oh, by the way, Goldman has 10,000 engineers, has
all the research,
programming language, and all the research and all of the analytics. Like when you leave Goldman, all these people will go start hedge funds, and they ask for access to that database because it is so valuable. You have all of the data you need, all the like, you can run analyses and sort of like what if scenarios very easily. And so they were like, why don't we spin this out too? And so that was what this team was trying to do. And the team was like 2 people. And I was like, okay, sure. But like, interesting problem. And I way back in high school, I had interned at Bloomberg, and I love Bloomberg as a company. I think it's like, they do hardware, they do software, they do like, it's just crazy sprawling prints money. And I was like, that's a really interesting vision if you could do it. And so went and worked there. And at the time, the CIO information officer, who eventually became CFO of Goldman, was this guy, Marty Chavez, who's a brilliant guy. Really like is an engineer himself, had started his own company himself. And he was the one that was like, we have to become a tech company. Like we have to become like, he looked towards Amazon. He looks towards like all these companies that are like, we need to build software that we can sell because that is the future of our revenue. And so that was the sort of like underlying thing. And at the same time, by the way, they're spinning up Marcus, which is their retail bank, which is the Apple Card and all that other shit. So that was a really interesting time to be at Goldman.
For sure.
Anyway, so learned a ton through that. The team still exists, 200, 300 people. I'm still like friends, neighbors with my old boss. Like it's crazy. But all of those people, like we had an amazing team. They knew how to hire, they knew how to sell. And so I like learned a ton through that.
That's crazy. Who would have thought like an engineer would go from the Bay Area to Goldman Sachs for 3.5 years and actually build something cool? Yeah,
it's kind of nuts. It's not what I expected, but yeah. Turns
out and then I'm assuming in the time, honestly, we usually don't do like timeline podcasts, but honestly, I feel like there's just so much to unpack. So I was like, fuck,
we can flip through it if you need to. Yeah.
Yeah. I do want to get to Clay and like kind of the story behind Clay. Like you've been at it for like half a decade now. So obviously there's like legs behind it. I know we talked before I think you raised around like 8 million so far for the business.
Yep.
Like from my first glance on the site, it seems like a CRM for like yourself in a sense, right? Like you as a person, you have a whole bunch of people in your network and you want to keep track of those interactions with people. Tell me if I'm wrong on that in a sense.
Yeah, no, that's it. I think, a lot of people, I mean, I can dive into that, but
yeah, please. No, honestly dive in because like if you've been think about it, if you raise $8 million and you do this for 6 years, there's more than just that in a sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So the vision there is, first of all, I've been doing some version of this since I was in middle school, high school. I've built 4 different versions of the software. Never really like got to what I needed, but the overall vision there is you watch really successful people, you read stories. I just read a book today that was mentioning how Bill Clinton used to do this. He would have index cards going back to like his time in like rural Arkansas, and he would write down just like your name, every person he met, just index card, index card, index card. The founding story of Clay, we put up a website about David Rockefeller. David Rockefeller had index cards. He would write down sort of person's name, a few like facts about the family.
Okay.
If he invited you over to dinner, he put down like what you had for dinner, so you didn't have like dinner, the same dinner twice. Just stuff like that.
Interesting.
And I had always not to the same extent, but after we talk, I write down like a few things. Mom's a teacher, Washington Heights, in Jersey, coding classes at library, like stuff like that. Just like the things that I want to remember so that we can pick up next time. And it turns out a lot of people do that. And a lot of the most successful people do that. And the only sort of reason that, if you're a CEO, you're able to do that is usually because you have an EA or a chief of staff who's following you around all day and doing that. And so our vision, I think a lot of individual professionals do that ad hoc. You write it, in an email to yourself, you put it in Evernote, you put it in Airtable, something like that. But it's too time consuming. You never sort of remember the people that you want to remember over time. And the thing that we were trying to sort of capture is I wrote a post called Engineering Serendipity, and it's about like you manufacturing randomness and chance in your encounters. When you're in college, you run into people in the campus quad, and like you're like, oh my god, we should catch up, and like that happens. In the workplace, there's all the stories about Apple and Pixar and all these places where like you want people to run into each other because that's what creates a new movie. And the reality is that you just don't do that as you get older in anything other than, these like few places. And so what we were trying to do is say, hey, that feeling that you have after meeting somebody great, I want to, keep up with you over time. I want to stay in touch with you. I want to get to know you better and meet your friends and build connections there. I want to capture that feeling, enhance that feeling. At the same time, that feeling you have that like you forgot your best friend's birthday, we want to like get rid of that feeling. And the reality is that 80% of people get their next job from like, not like their best friend, not their former coworker, from a weak tie, from somebody that's like second or third degree connection on LinkedIn. You don't really know them that well, but like they're there. And so that when you look at the stats, when you look at Dunbar's number, you can only have 150 people in your head at any given time. All of those things sort of have gotten worse or, have progressed in this really bad way as we've like gotten more digital. And so what we said is, what if we had this like amazing, always up-to-date Rolodex that reminded you about the people you should be thinking about and told you when your friend moved to New York and you could catch up with them again and all that stuff. And so that was the sort of like origin story.
That was the origin idea. So like this was like 6 years ago. You kind of started putting it together.
Yeah.
When you started this, did you go ahead and raise a bunch of money from the beginning, or did you kind of like start building it, putting it together yourself and stuff like that? And also, are you considered like the technical person on the team, or is everyone technical in a sense?
That's a good question. Can I turn my light on actually?
Yeah, go do what you guys do. Yeah, no worries.
So have been doing it. We're both technical. So my co-founder Matt is also studied CS and knows how to code. I definitely do more of the like programming product stuff, and he'll do more like design and growth. But we're both involved in pretty much everything.
Oh, nice.
We did not raise money at the beginning. I think we looked at, and this is again like, depends on like what you used growing up. But I think we had always been using, my co-founder had the first iPhone. He was like an Apple fanboy for a very long time.
For sure.
I didn't until like college, but the software on those like original platforms, when you looked at like indie developers, you saw 1Password, modern examples of sort of like Notion at the very early days, Path, Sunrise was a calendar app. There are all these like apps that really inspired us. And they were able to have staying power in most cases because they didn't take money, or they took money very late. They got profitable. They had really talented teams that were actually quite small. And so we had that as a model. But we also had just like quit our jobs and needed healthcare. So, we're balancing those two sort of concerns, but I think there are going to be a lot more, I think that was our North Star. And then, I think we realized that the opportunity here, we have 120 million plus contacts. We have 2 billion like emails, calendars, text messages. Like there's a lot of data, and to do the things that you want to build the product features that have that sort of magical touch, whether it's a voice assistant you just talk to after a meeting, or those proactive recommendations about like, hey, somebody changed jobs, you should reach out to them. You need infrastructure, you need really smart engineers, you need data. And so that's why we raised money, was to sort of accelerate all of that and accelerate our growth, which was all either individual professionals and now teams of people who want to use Clay.
And I think you told me earlier that you have a pretty small team for what you guys have built, right?
Yeah,
I'm curious how you keep it so small too.
Yeah, everybody's pretty much a generalist. I can't think of anybody who's really like, my co-founder Matt calls it T-shaped people. So people that are broad in a bunch of different things, but then can go deep on their sort of area of focus, and that allows you to just build. Different people can jump in on the code base in different places. Everybody's sort of involved with either customer support or bug fixing or design polish. Like everybody has that eye, and everybody uses software and like appreciates software in a way that like, I have such an appreciation now for, all the apps that I use daily, because even like, look at Riverside, look at
Definitely,
browser, like all the software is a team of people who, they are making software enjoyable to use on a daily basis. They're making it secure and private. They're making it, something that can last, for years and years and years. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into making something that can also be a company, by the way, because you need it to generate revenue, like, to support.
No, and I'm curious, like, if you want to tell me, that'd be awesome. Like on the 8 people, in a sense, like what are the roles of the 8 people? Because like,
yeah,
I'm like literally a 5-6 year old company that has raised multiple million. You've raised more money in millions than you have in employees. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Like I'm curious what everyone, like, do you have salespeople? Is it all like just engineers, like designers? Like what are their roles?
Yeah, pretty much all engineering and design. We have one person on supporting community, and then me and Matt, and again, all of us are, I'm writing software pretty much every day, if not, multiple times a week, but pretty much every day. Matt's, designing. It's a hands-on. I think a lot of people will say stuff about the sort of founder mode, like Paul Graham thing that.
Yeah, that's yeah. I feel like that's popping up on Twitter lately.
Yeah, like, and whatever you think about that, I think the idea that you're the one that is going to care the most, and you're the person who you attract great people, you retain great people, and they look to you and your level of interest and care for how much they should care. And I think that's like super important. I think it's when we pass around examples of all these like pieces of software internally, and it's the companies that you see you don't hear a lot from any individual person, but as a whole you see what they're doing in the product itself, and you can tell that there's an attention to detail, there's a care. It's the Steve Jobs back of the toilet thing, like I think that's Steve Jobs, the back of the cabinet,
back of the toilet,
back of whatever it is, toilet cabinet. The idea that like the things that nobody's ever going to see except for that one person,
for
they
sure,
will notice and they will care. So
definitely. And like I'm also curious too, because like it started as a consumer app, right?
Yeah.
Like I think now it looks like it's more pushed towards like B2B in a sense. Like originally, how'd you get your first customers too, though?
Yeah. So we literally we put up a landing page that we still have. I think it's clay.earth/story.
Okay.
And that was that sort of like David Rockefeller story. I tweeted about it. We tried to get on Product Hunt, I remember, and they didn't allow wait lists. We had a wait list we said like, if you want this enough, put down a credit card and you'll be the first in line. And Product Hunt didn't allow it. And so the next morning I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'll just like tweet about it. And tweeted about it, and initially it was just like the people that I knew people in tech and like the community and stuff, and then like it was that next circle of people where people I had never met before, never talked to, were DMing me, reaching out, emailing, like, hey, this is exactly like, do this and like I
Jeez.
will pay. And that was a big unlock, because it was like it got like hundreds of thousands of views. We had probably thousands of sort of signups. I don't know if that was credit cards or emails, but like enough where we were like, this is a real thing. And it had de-risked, I think, that first step to us, which is like, does anybody else think this way? We had done hundreds of user interviews, but it was still like, are those people going to pay for this like random piece of software?
For sure.
And it turns out like, yes, they have. So that was the consumer side. And then, the whole sort of, I think you've seen a lot of companies where you go from prosumer. That was like sort of the wave we were riding, which is like, this is important enough for your work where you're willing to pay for it. And then moving from there to, okay, now you're not only using it for yourself, but that there's either people that work with you directly. Maybe we have people that are just like husband, wife, sort of sharing contacts internally for Christmas cards, all the way to Fortune 500 execs who are using it with their family office or their exec team or whatever. So there's a wide range within there, but we believe that it's the same software. It's like, it's the Rolodex or the address book you had in your home drawer or on your desk at your office, but digital and a lot smarter.
Definitely. And like, I was on this site, and pretty much what would happen is like, if I create an account, I'd connect like my email, my calendar, like my social maybe, and like it would just pull everything into like one dashboard in a sense.
Exactly. So the first step, the first version of Clay was literally like, tell us who you know, connect your calendar, and we will pull in a bunch of information about them, so you don't have to remember that stuff. We'll keep that stuff up to date, their resume, their like location and stuff like that. And then the other side is your notes about them. So that was like V1. Today, if you go, you can choose what you want to connect. Who do you want to remember? Some people do email, calendar, LinkedIn. Other people go, all the way to Twitter. We have WhatsApp. We have iMessage. We have, we have people that will just send us a file.
You even have iMessage. You connect your iPhone.
Yeah,
really?
Totally. So for us, it was really the more we dug into it, it was just sort of like never-ending hole, which is like part of the challenge is to really, people's networks are more expansive than ever, and they encompass like we have Fortune 500 execs who literally want us to pull from their iPhone because they are not doing that deal on email anymore. They're texting that person, and so they need to tell their team, and the team needs to have the contacts. They don't need to have like full messages and everything, but they want to know, like, did you message this person back or not? And so we started with calendar actually, then we did email, and then we started like layering things on. And the more we would just wait until we heard it enough times and then we would build it. And so we have, WhatsApp, CSV import for a bunch of different things. We have like a lot of like conventional CRM type things, but that was all built on, where does your network live today and who do you need to remember? And so the only reason we want those things is let us bring all those people together, deduplicate them, bring as much information about them as possible, just so that you can search on them. So you know everything you need to know about them, and that you don't have to update that. Because a lot of people will have a spreadsheet and they have to like update, what job is this person in now? What, where do they work? When was the last time I talked to them? All that. We'll keep all of that up to date. And then what you're left with is notes. So if you want to take any notes, some people are not note takers, that's fine. Other people are like, I want to like take very meticulous notes. Search. So when you're traveling to a new city, search for just San Francisco. We're going to tell you everybody who's there, sort by how well you know them. So these are the people that you haven't seen in a while. These are the people that you're very close to and you haven't talked to. And then here are the people, there's probably a million LinkedIn connections you haven't met. That's fine. You don't have to talk to them. We're not sort of prescribing the outbound, the transactional, the how do you talk to somebody. It's more getting you in front of the right people, and then you decide how you want to sort of interact, whether it's a text message, an email, just even thinking about them, going to their social profile and seeing what they're up to, like all that.
I'm curious, I don't know if you could talk about this, but who are like some of the, I feel like probably some famous people that use this, like some very, like,
we've got,
what level does it get to?
It's one of our things is just like, I think like a lot of like family offices and things, it's like you want to keep it very private. But we have VIPs at every level. We have most of the top decile like VC funds,
Really?
people using it, either teams or individuals. Um, I have a call tomorrow with like a very big like YouTube and Instagram influencer who is like building out their sort of it's these people who it's not sales, it's not like it's not personal relationships, it's not professional. Like the lines are like totally blurred. Like even for you, I imagine like you have your work stuff, you have your personal stuff, you're meeting a bunch of people, you have your previous jobs, you like,
And it's all stuck on your phone though. That's the thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the reality is the contacts app in the phone is the most neglected part of the phone. You've seen how that like has evolved a little bit. But we've talked to people both at Google Contacts and on Apple side, and it's not a focus, right? Like they are building for the the billionth user, and that's totally fine. Like it needs to work for your grandma, great. But the phone is not a phone anymore. It's like the contact is actually to us is a really interesting like root piece of a bunch of other things that happen in your phone that needs to know, a lot of the thesis here is what are the magical experiences you can make when you know that when you mention somebody else's name in an email or something, that's a person that you're referencing, and like it means something. When I search for a lot of people will have these like conversational assistants now, right? Like if I say, schedule time with John for next week, like that John is you, and you have preferences around what you want to eat and where you want to meet, and like what do we like? Are we friends? Are we coworkers? Are we personal, professional? Like all of the different spectrums that you could exist on. That stuff has to live somewhere, and to us, that's the contact. That's where it lives. But a lot of these tools don't know who you are, right? It's just like it's as much as I put in my phone, and the number of fucked up contacts that people will show us and be like, I haven't updated. Like people will have contacts from 5 jobs ago, or they'll meet somebody at a bar and put, John, Greek last name, and it's crazy. And so context doesn't mean anything. And so we are bringing that sort of like
next level to it.
We say it contacts with context. It's like it's the next level sort of intelligence on top of it.
And I'm curious too, because like obviously you raised a bunch of money for this too. What was that thesis? What was that story? What was that vision you were telling like early stage investors? And like what was like the like what was the timeline of raising money? Like, was it one round of 8 million? Was it multiple rounds? Like kind of how'd you get to this point? Like where'd you even start with that process? I do think a consumer app is probably pretty hard to raise money for if like you're not Snapchat. So like what did that whole process look like? Like did it take a while? Did you have to really convince a lot of people? Like I'm curious of that too.
Yeah, that's a great question. So it was multiple rounds. We met General Catalyst pretty early on. They have a really good track record of great software companies. They did, like you mentioned, Snapchat. They have Snapchat. They have a bunch of other B2B companies, Stripe, all sorts of people. The Forerunner Ventures is our other large backer, and they have a very deep record in both software, but also like brands. So, thinking through design, storytelling, and how you build sort of like really loyal followers. And that's what stuck. I think we stuck out to them because of that side of the business. Our members, like we have really like our word of mouth and organic is crazy high. We have people who will take us, who have been with us since the start and have like had their entire network in there. And the bigger thing is, which I think always was important to us, but which a lot of people don't understand is, if we did a lot of that sort of like outbound communication, if I automated your text messages and I was like, hey, Zach, let's catch up in like 3 months. The reality is that you would never want to show people that you use Clay because you'd be like, oh, I don't want them to know that I'm doing that. And so everything we did was, you should be proud. Like if somebody learns of it or sees it on your phone, like they should be like, oh shit, like that you care enough to use this thing.
For sure.
And so they think a lot about that in both D2C companies, but also consumer and B2B companies. The fundraising, I think the fundraising story was, I think our investors understand not only how valuable the data set is, and how valuable the sort of like platform you're building
That's
is.
true. The data you're collecting is insanely valuable.
Yeah, and we don't ever sell our users' data. We don't ever but it is the things you can do if you build that foundation right, you can build really magical experiences and build a system of record for a lot of this stuff in a way that no other company has been able to do. The other thing, which I don't, I won't take credit for having seen this 5 years ago, but the idea that we were starting to even see it with, when we started, Evernote was sort of on its like decline, and this was the time like Notion was coming back up, and we had seen a lot of like the productivity ecosystem had really changed. So the tools that you use at work are very different than they used to be, and they're more like segmented. So like everything, there's a lot of these sort of general purpose like docs, spreadsheets, everything work like stuff together in one place. But then everything else, email was sort of like, there's a million email apps, there's a million calendar apps. Like everybody sort of chooses what they want to use. And more companies, you have multi-thousand, tens of thousands person companies who are bringing that software into their enterprises. So there is a real willingness to pay for great software that it makes, if, the pitch is like, if I can make your employees, 1% more productive, what are you willing to pay for that? And the reality is that like, that's prosumer, and the future of work. When people say that, that's what they mean. And I think in some cases it's been overhyped, but for the most part, you have seen that. Like Figma, in design land, various things have tried to like sort of pick off parts of Salesforce. Like if your job, if you're paying somebody, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars to do their job, you can afford to pay a few extra dollars to
help them perform better. Yeah,
exactly. And so this, above anything, is like, we think, really important to that sort of ecosystem. Yeah.
And like even like kind of going forward now, like you've been at it for 5.5 years. What does your vision for this business look like? Is it something that you want to keep growing for a very long time? Is it something you want to exit, like say within the next few years? Like, I'm just curious from a founder standpoint that has been doing this for say half a decade.
Yeah.
Where do you want the business to be? Like, where do you think it's going and stuff like that too?
Yeah. I mean, we think it's generational. We talk a lot about, I mentioned system of record. There is a set of problems that you can solve when you have the right foundation of data, members, sort of people locked in. And we have a amazing ecosystem of both users and of sort of data set features and things like that. So we think it's like a really hard problem to solve, and we're beginning to chip away at it. The other thing is, I think you realize very quickly when you're building these like really tough software businesses, is it's not on the outside. If I wanted to, all the previous versions of Clay that I built for myself, it's very different if you're building software for just yourself. It's an entirely different animal when you're building it for
other people.
Like and millions of very sort of captive, interested people, and we're just scraping the surface of that in the professional category. So we think there's a long way to go, and I think we're, even just today, I got a message from a user. He had tried it. He tried Clay a year ago, and we didn't have like one integration, so he like turned off. Like last night, he emails us like 1 a.m. He's like, I just came back. You'll never remember me. I'm sending you this like LinkedIn DM. I turned off all the other tools I was using. I'm back on Clay. I paid for Pro. This is the only thing I'm going to be investing in. I just moved all of my contacts to it. Like, keep doing great work. Rating, because it's like they've seen you just keep grinding away at that like perfection of a software product, and
definitely
we're doing a lot of we both have to do the data side of it, plus all of the like sort of, I joke that we're sort of like Plaid, if you know Plaid.
Plaid,
space. So it's like you have to like enable users to connect every place.
Well, that's true. Like you're pretty much Plaid, but like not for banks, but for like WhatsApps and LinkedIn and all this stuff.
And Plaid, props to Plaid. Like they let you connect any bank account in the world, to any app in the world, and it works. And like that's what you have to do. But then we also are building the banking app on top of it. You know what I mean?
That's
like we're doing both. And so that's why, it's a constant toggling. Like what's the biggest fire right now? Okay, our data. Let's like fix that. Okay, what's the biggest fire right now?
Those integrations are not easy to put together and like maintain everything. Yeah.
No, and these things it's not off the shelf stuff. And that's why people, it's very easy for you export your Twitter followers and like stick it in a spreadsheet and you're done. Like, cool, congrats. But like, that's not what Clay is. Clay is, keeping all that information up to date. It's deduplicating the Twitter follower with the LinkedIn person. Like, there's so much.
Oh, I see.
Stuff
That's true too. Because you could have some person on email, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and text. You have to figure out that it's the same guy, and like, you can't have four
exactly.
Four same
You have four different
one.
people. You're like, you look at it and you're like, why this data is messy. I'm going to give up. And so, we think about, it's the CEO, they have a busy job. Where's their next deal going to come from? Their next recruit, their next candidate, their next like sort of, even just people outside of work, their next friend, and like
sure.
Bring all that together. And in the way that a great EA would like be proactive, like who do they need to talk to? Like, this person just changed jobs. You want to do a deal with them? Send them a gift. Like, that is the level of.
Well, the nuttiest thing is that I'm gonna use Clay. Like I'm not a user, so like honestly after this I'm gonna sign up because like I'm kind of like it's kind of funny because like even this happened to me 3 weeks ago. So like I didn't even know this was a thing. So I had my my college email on my phone, and I kept getting a notification being like, oh, like log back into your account. Like it was like annoying me. But like that email was deactivated like when I graduated. I just I clicked delete. So like I stopped getting that notification. And then next thing you know, I scroll through my text and every freaking text is just a phone number.
No names.
There's no name. And I was like, whoa. So I spent like 4 hours just like typing people's names on like, I was like scrolling up, reading a text, and like, who was this? And like, I was like, Jesus. And that was like, I don't know, maybe 25% of my contacts. It was painful.
I'm sorry that happened. Yeah.
No, like I tried calling Apple and everything, couldn't get it figured out. But this could have saved my life on that because like you are right. Like even like higher level business people all day they're just on their phone to like get their next customer, get their next hire, like gift somebody something, say happy birthday to somebody, like Merry Christmas to somebody, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that is powerful. You'll never
believe that. I had a customer who also that happened to them, but they sent out an email blast. So they had lost. I don't remember. I don't know if they wiped their phone or they lost their phone, but they sent out an email blast that was like, hey, this is a situation. Please like go to this form and like I've lost your contact information. Like give me whatever you think I communicated with you before. So email or phone, and then like your name so that I can like repopulate it. And I responded back. I was like, okay, hey, I filled out the form, but by the way, I think you're still a customer. Like I think you still have an account. So like go into Clay and like go check. And they like immediately responded. They were like, oh my God. And then they responded all to everybody. They were like, never mind, like Clay, like that's the level of like, we save your ass.
That's not
like, change jobs and you just forgot to like take your contacts with you. It's like, it's a real meaningful difference to me.
That's virality right there. That's kind of nuts. I think this is a good place to end this podcast too. Because like legitimately for people listening, like it's definitely like you're not even sponsoring us, but like this is pretty fucking sick. Yeah. And like it's funny because like even before our conversation, like I told you this, like I don't do much research on these things. I literally just hop on and we have a fun conversation. I think I learned a whole bunch from this too, and like I think it definitely I'm gonna add a new tool to like I think something just died, but I can hear myself talking now, but it's all. I think you took off your headphone. That's why. All good.
Yeah.
No, but I legitimately think that this is a pretty amazing tool that like you can literally use the rest of your life, not just like kind of like a thing you just add and like get rid of. And like, do you guys have an app as well too?
Yeah. So we have so clay.earth. You can go there, give it a try, free to try. And then we do have a free version. If you have like smaller networks, you can upgrade to Pro for a bunch of different things. You can take a look. We have native iOS, Mac, and Windows apps, and then there's also the web version. So
you know like a Mac app and everything too.
Yeah. So install it on your computer. You have it open all day. We have people who like take notes in there. Get your next meetings in there, stuff like that.
Awesome. I think this is awesome. Like for people watching, do you want people to reach out to you at all? Or you don't like people reaching out to you? I'm curious.
Zach
people
at
find you?
Clay.earth is ZACH at clay.earth. We love chatting with people. If you have, I joke that it's sort of like therapy. So whenever, people lose contacts or they're like, literally every person is like, last week, this thing happened. And, or, I reconnected with a friend or I got a new job and did it. So like, we love chatting through that stuff. Send me emails if we can help with anything.
I love it. Definitely shoot Zach an email. I think it's been a great conversation. Like I want to do a round two definitely with Kyle once he's back up and running and everything too. But I definitely appreciate you coming on. Like for everyone listening too, like definitely like a lot of our podcasts are like e-commerce people too.
Yeah.
But I do like that we're having a little more of like a tech, like D2C tech focused podcast as well too. Because I think that's something a lot of e-commerce founders like don't think about, that like the Silicon Valley tech world is even 10 times bigger than Shopify.
I mean, and I talked to Ben about, I mean, Ben is probably the most thoughtful people, some of the most thoughtful people that I've met who do these behaviors are in e-commerce. And I think it's because there are like, you've got vendors and customers, and like there's like so many layers to what you guys do. And it's a relationships business. Like when something goes wrong in the middle of the night, you're calling somebody up. And yeah, so like by all means, like if you feel this, hopefully I can help with your business or help personally. Yeah,
definitely reach out to Zach. Check out, it's clay.earth, right? That's clay.earth. We'll definitely put it in the description too.
Cool.
And on our end, for all the listeners too, I think we're up to like almost 3,500 subs on YouTube. So make sure you're subscribing on YouTube.
There you go.
Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, like, comment. If you got this far in the video, comment something. Say like I got to minute, I don't know. I think we're at like minute 60. So
sweet.
I appreciate you guys.
Entertaining.
Yeah, hopefully it's been entertaining, and yeah, appreciate you, Zach, and we'll catch you guys all in the next one. Thank you a bunch.
Amazing. Thanks, John.